Thank you, councillors and staff and members of the media. I declare this meeting open. In doing so, also would like to acknowledge the Wadandi Noongar people that we are meeting, or their land that we're meeting on today, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Councillors, we also are going to have Councillor Steck joining by phone. Because it's a public health order, we don't need to vote on this one, and after much consideration I've approved that. So we'll just get Councillor Steck on the line. Councillor Steck, are you there? Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Steck. We've just started the meeting and you are now in. The only other announcements for me is welcoming back our esteemed CEO. Hope you enjoyed your break, Mr. Osborne. Apologies, we have one apology from Councillor Plum, and Councillor Steele is on approved leave of absence. We don't have any declarations of interest so far, councillors. Are there none to add? Thank you. Could I have somebody move the minutes of the previous meeting? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Quain. Seconder, Councillor Andrew. I'll put that, councillor. All those in favour? Councillor Steck? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Steck. And you can hear me okay, Councillor Steck?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Thank you. Okay, so we have the minutes of the advisory committees there. This is Disability Access and the Bunbury Events Advisory Committee. Could I have somebody move that we accept those? Thank you, Councillor Quain. Seconder, Councillor Giles. Thank you, councillors. I'll put that. All in favour? Councillor Steck? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. There are no presentations, deputations or petitions. So at the moment, councillors, the only item coming out for discussion as written at the moment is 10.3.3, which requires an absolute majority. And of course, the motion on notice will be dealt with as well. Are there any further items councillors would like to discuss? All good? Councillor Gassett?
Yeah, 10.3.2 please.
10.3.2 coming out. Any further items? If that's the case, could I have somebody move the balance is moved on block? Councillor Andrew, mover. Councillor Councillor McCleary, seconder. I'll put that. All in favour? Councillor Steck? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Brings us to item 10.3.2, the integrated strategic planning. We'll get this on the table first. Could I have somebody move this? Councillor Andrew, seconded by Councillor McCleary. Councillor Gassett, do you have a question or were you speaking against the item?
I will speak against it.
Sure. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it very brief, but I just have an excerpt from the actual item itself. And it's a very interesting way of looking at it as a new councillor when we come in to the organisation and trying to make heads and tails of how everything fits together and combines together. And I'm very excited to see this come across the table because it does provide us with a holistic and integrated approach driven by the community. When you come in, you don't really anticipate the importance of the strategic community plan, which will be next coming up, but to actually link all of our strategic planning and reporting back to that community plan basically means that the community will be driving everything we do at all levels of this organisation. So I'd just like to thank the staff for all the work they've done in putting this together and please vote in favour. Thank you.
Good answer. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To say that this is a living document and the amount of background and workshopping that we've done with it along with the community has been exceptional, and I want to thank everybody that was involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGarry. Is there a speaker against Councillor Gassett?
Yeah, also very briefly, look, Mr Mayor, I just feel that this is another layer. I'm not sure how we survived for the last 20 years without something like that. But I didn't want to speak against the strategic community plan, so I'll mention something in here, and that is we do reference 17 United Nations goals in our SCP, and it also flows into here. And with those goals, there's 193 targets. I'm just starting to worry that we're starting to go beyond our scope. Obviously very noble causes. But if we're going to start, looking at the United Nations, we've got enough legislation state and federally, and we've got the barriers that we need to work within strategically and also legislative. If we have to start adopting, or in this case, opting into United Nations resolutions, albeit nice, noble causes, we're going to have to triple our, administration, quadruple our budget. We really need to. I believe we need to be more mindful of public funds and what we can do with them. So when we start taking things like this on, I start to wonder. So the other thing with this is paperwork doesn't necessarily solve administration management. Coming from a design background, the hardest thing to design is simplicity. And putting another document into, or another strategy, or in this case, a pretty big mouthful, integrated strategic planning and reporting framework. That in itself tells me that's complicated. It's not simple. So the other thing, just briefly, and this is probably a discussion for another day, in this recommendation, there is a recommendation internally of 5 new working groups. I know we've discussed it privately. So on top of existing 8 committees, I'm not sure whether it's going to lead to having 5 new committees, 5 to replace existing committees, or an additional 5 working groups to the existing committees. It's just all growing and becoming cumbersome. So the reason I'm raising these is that, I believe we need to focus on output and implementation. I know this is a tool. It's probably more of an internal tool rather than something that council is going to get involved in. So to an extent, I'm not sure what's coming to us, but probably the main reason is we're talking about 5 new working groups as a separate little issue. And I don't think we need 13 committees, groups, whatever you want to call it. Finally, the other thing, Mr Mayor, is I really was hoping to, under Prosperity, the pillar, Prosperity, as a new Southwest Regional Innovation Plan. And I did, for some reason, must have got lost in the emails, but I did make a notice that I was going to have an amendment on that to include, to change it from Regional Innovation Plan to Regional Education and Innovation Plan. So I'll just sit down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gassett. Is there a speaker for Councillor Andrew?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just wrap up very briefly. As stated in the regional impact statement, and just for the benefit of the members and those in the gallery, the Integrated Strategic Planning Reporting Framework is the central guide. It is only a guide for the strategic planning, scheduling, development, review and reporting across all COB services and facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. I'll put the recommendation as it stands. Are those in favour? Those against? And, sorry, Councillor Steck? In favour? 1 against. That recommendation is carried. We move to 10.3.3, the Strategic Community Plan, which does require an absolute majority. Could I have somebody move this? Councillor Giles? Seconder, Councillor Andrew. Is there likely to be any debate on this, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Brings us to our application of leave. We have a recommendation there. Could I have a mover for that one, please? Not all at once. Councillor Giles, thank you. Councillor Yip, seconder. All those in favour? Councillor Steck? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. And this should bring us to a motion on notice. Councillor Andrew's motion. Councillor Andrew, would you like to move? Could I have a seconder to this one? Councillor Gassett?
I have a question, sir.
Sure.
Could we just have a costing to the residents if they were to subdivide their block, if they were thinking about it, and that including the, if they were to put the sewerage on, electricity, water, all the services on, could we, and also whom do they pay to actually put in the design? Could we just have a costing on that, please?
Yep.
If it's possible.
It might be a difficult question. It would be
Just
a number of factors. Sure. I'll ask the CEO if he's got a response around a rough idea of subdivision costs.
It would be very rough. Look, I think every block is going to be different, and this is the difficulty. That's where property owners need to be able to assess the current market, the distance they have to run infrastructure. I'm not sure if Mr. Barber has any general sums that he might be able to use, but I don't really.
Through Mr. Mayor, as the CEO outlined, it's very site-specific, would vary across the city depending on what services need to be connected, whether they need to construct battle axe legs, whether they need to fence it, whether they need to fill it, various issues. It could be anywhere between $40,000 and $80,000 per block. It just depends on the circumstances.
I think the second part of the question was who are those fees payable, and so what fees payable to the city as compared to other agencies or development? So, yeah.
Through Mr. Mayor, there's no fees payable to the city. It's an application fee to the West Australian Planning Commission for subdivision. And then there are various headworks fees to all the different agencies that will be involved, and then the cost of the actual construction of the lots.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Planning is such a complex area, and I think this is a great initiative. The more information we give people, the better, obviously. But it seems like we're just concentrating on one issue of planning, where there's probably 8 or 9 different other areas of planning that we could be concentrating on and explaining as well. So just from that viewpoint, could I have a comment whether that is going to be okay if we just pick one area at a time?
So your question is, are we focusing on all the areas of planning, or should we be, rather than one? CEO, do you have a response for that question?
Considered response, Mr. Mayor. Well, obviously, Councillor Andrew has proposed a motion. I think there are many topics that we could include in flyers with our rate notices or in other ways to our community. Staff have been working on an investment incentive document, and we've also had the internal conversations around how do we let people know about how they might be able to take advantage of further developing their property, anything from ancillary accommodation through to subdivision, etc., etc. I guess we've been asked in this motion, proposed motion, to deal with bringing to people's attention the potential opportunities. That will still require we can do that in a simple way, and Mr. Barber might have something to add. We can do that in a simple manner, but it will still require each individual or each property owner to take quite a bit of further advice before they could undertake any of those courses of action, a subdivision or additional property development. I'm not sure if Mr. Barber's got anything further to add.
Cool. Just one more question from me. And May 2022 is on there. I know we have a pretty busy schedule. Is that something that's going to be achievable? To have that workshop by May 2022 through the CEO?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, it's already scheduled in.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can I ask a question or
Yep.
more clarification?
Sure, Councillor Steck.
Thank you. For all intents and purposes, I thought that this motion was only to create a list of possible properties for sale. It doesn't speak of subdivision, it doesn't speak of anything else, just a possible list. So then the procedure would still be in place for land holdings that would have to go to tender, I'm sure. So is that the case?
No, the motion is. Do you have the motion in front of you, Councillor Steck? Is to have the relevant officers complete current review of potential investment incentives. That's part one, and that workshop is just been mentioned will be scheduled for next May. So that part of it is happening anyway. And part two is preparing or asking a brochure to be distributed with the rates notice with potential opportunities for residential landowners. That'll be going to all ratepayers and exploring those opportunities. So in terms of your invested, yeah. Well, one sec, sorry, Councillor Steck. Is there any further questions? Ask a question, Councillor Gassett, yep.
Just to the officer comments, Mr Mayor, it does say that this item 1's supported. Can I take my mask off? I'm really hard to breathe and talk.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Gassett.
So the officers commenced research already and working upon an investment incentive policy already. So in a way, the question is, doesn't this already support what the officers are doing?
Yes, Councillor Gassett, yes.
Okay. And does it reinforce what the officers are doing?
Yes. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and Councillors, for hearing this motion, and I guess it's my opportunity to tell you why I brought this before. I'd also just like to thank Gary Barber for working with me on this motion. I had put a alternate motion forward, and we worked together, Mr Mayor, to be able to put this forward, something that satisfies both the curiosities of myself and I think Mr Barber. As we all know, Bunbury finds itself in an unfortunate but unique position, surrounded by water to the north and west, and with three other shires in our southern and eastern boundaries, and only by 8 kilometres and only an 8 kilometre by 8 kilometre city. Currently, Bunbury and its residents provide most of the major infrastructure in Bunbury and the Bunbury Metro and Bunbury Geo regions. However, we do find our growth of our rate base is almost stagnant, meaning that very few are providing the heavy lifting when it comes to regional infrastructure. Last year, the Council adopted the local housing strategy, which now falls under place in the integrated planning strategy map that we just adopted, and that strategy pointed towards the Bunbury geographic region's population, Mr Mayor, is expected to more than double to 200,000 people by 2050, and around 39,700 new homes will be required to accommodate the region's population growth. LPS number 8 revealed that between 9,147 and 16,616 new homes can be accommodated in the existing urban zoned land in Bunbury, and over 60% of that can be achieved through urban infill locations through subdivision. The first motion is to deliver Action 19 of the Housing Strategy. Action 19, that the City of Bunbury will review LPS 8 to consider housing incentives or bonuses for alternate housing options. Whilst the second is to engage with residents regarding recent changes in regards to ancillary dwellings, so not the need to subdivide, but how we can better use our properties, and also subdivision potentials. With the City of Bunbury remembering that 60% of the some 9,000 to 16,000 houses can be achieved through infill. Why send it out with our rates? To save money on postage, so we only do it once, but also I'm sure that there hasn't been a councillor or you, Mr Mayor, in this chamber that hasn't been told the only time they hear from us is when they get their rates notice. Finally, tonight we approved the Strategic Community Plan, and second on the list of top priorities for the city was housing. And under it, what we do next is advocate for both public and private housing providers to provide more diverse choices for all groups in our community, including those needing student, senior and specialist housing. So this is working with private householders. I would very much enjoy your support if you feel so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. Councillor Gassett.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering whether an email came through showing just an excerpt from the Greater Bunbury Regional, the Bunbury Geograph Sub-Regional Strategy. Wouldn't mind putting that up there. Just the second page, please. If you could zoom that up. I don't have my glasses, but councillors, this is the sort of thing I've been elected for, to try to get things done. You know, I love publications and all that sort of stuff, but I like actionable items, and we do need action. So this recently released and the endorsed report by the Department of Planning is this excerpt map is from the Bunbury Geograph Sub-Regional Strategy, and it's been adopted, and it shows what is really a new metropolitan area for our region, and it takes Dalyellup in the south and further, and all the way into Australind, Trendale, all the way to the west on Ball, the Bunbury Outer Ring Road, and south of that some of the industrial areas. So all that land is becoming available for subdivision, yet Bunbury has got very restricted amounts of land. Our population base and ratepayer base has been very stagnant for a very long time, and yet all the adjoining shires have been growing, not say exponentially, but significantly, because they've got plenty of land, something we don't have much of. So personally, I believe we need to roll out the red carpet for developers, the mums and dads, investors, and by incentivising rather than taking out the stick, incentivising with a carrot is the best way to go. Costs are going up. There's huge costs of living, escalations, inflation's gone crazy, construction costs, including project costs for councils, going up. So we do need more funds. And, we can't rely on the poor existing ratepayers. We really can't. We need to expand our ratepayer base. And I can understand the intent of Councillor Andrew's motion. It's a very good cause to actually help people that have already got land here to subdivide. And when you subdivide, you end up with a very big holding costs besides the normal subdivision costs. So, and that is a disincentive. So we also need an economy of scale. By introducing these incentives also sends out the message, and that's what we really need. We need to send out the message to everybody, whether it's locals who want to subdivide some land they're sitting on for their kids, or whether it's some major developer from over east, say, look, we do want something to happen here. We can go to them with this Bunbury metropolitan area. I would suggest that it'll be metropolitan area under a new name, probably an Indigenous name. Give it a new image, attract people, and have a good economy of scale where we can introduce other things, some of the things you're talking about in the strategic community plans. And this will help our objectives. We really need to grow. I'm very positive about this motion. I really think we need to send the message out there. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gabbett. Is there a speaker against?
Mr Mayor, I'm not going to speak against. I'm going to vote for it, but I am going to speak a warning of care, please. May I do that?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. We're going to send out a very excitable letter, which I hope that it will be written very carefully, because people will think they're sitting on a gold mine. And they'll rush in, and then they'll find out how expensive it is. And I'm a bit concerned that the people, our residents, will think that we're just doing this to get a money grab for another lot of rates, which they may be stuck with for however long it takes them to sell their block of land that they may have had enough money to subdivide. So I ask that we err on caution. We're not advocating any prizes here. There's no discounts. We're just information. And I think, I'm feeling that perhaps the people whom we're going to be sending it out to need to know this is just information. So as a caring person and councillor, I want to be reassured by this council that when we come to write that letter that will go with the rates, that it will be just that and not a promise that they're going to get rich quick. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alkiri. The people writing that document are probably in the room, so I'm sure they'll take it on board. Take that as a speaker against. Was there a speaker for?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Steck.
Thank you. Look, I would encourage councillors to actually support this motion. It's not a motion that's going to have any major complications that council could be weary of. For example, if you're looking at subdivision, that's asking people to subdivide their own blocks. And not all blocks will be able to be subdivided, but some will be. And people who pay rates in the city should also have a notice that says on their rates, well, your property is R30, R40 or R60. You may be able to subdivide this property. You are entitled to make inquiries. So that's not enforcing people, it's encouraging people. And the other thing is that the potential investment incentives, we've been speaking about that for months. So we really do need to get to the bottom of it. Yes, our staff are already on it for May, but this is just a precursor to saying, well, this is, yes, we're going to do this, and May will sort it out, and we'll come back before council again, I'm sure. So I would just urge councillors to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Steck. Is there a speaker against? Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very passionate, Mr. Mayor, about the local housing strategy. It has been drummed into me pre-election by some members of the public as such an important document. There are 21 action items, councillors, Mr. Mayor, on that strategy, which I would encourage all members to have a look at if they get a chance and reread the document. It is quite an informative document. Bunbury again finds itself landlocked, 8 kilometres by 8 kilometres, and with the potential for 9,000 to 16,000 new houses out of the potential 39,000 that are needed for the region. At least we'll be able to capture some of that new population growth in our city, which will help to keep downward pressure on rates. Just again today I was questioned by a member of public about something pertaining to the housing strategy, which was the the above shop apartments. And again I was able to refer them back to this document. So I do implore all members to please, if you feel so, please support this motion. Hopefully this won't be the last. Housing is very important. It is a human rights issue that everybody has access to housing, and hopefully this way we can help to keep people within our city limits. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrew. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Steck?
Yes.
Yes, that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I believe that brings us to a close. Councillors, I'll declare this meeting closed at 5:59. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you.